Tammy.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Today is Thursday, June 23rd. It is 6:44, calling the Executive Committee meeting to order. My name is Tammy Meltzer. I am Chair of Manhattan Community Board 1. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and let's rock and roll. This should be a beautifully swift meeting. We like that. So we're going to dive right in. So Councilmember Marte has made a proposal to create a safe alternative with the existing detention complex that we have in our CB by dedicating its use as a women's facility. We did share and post documents and information prior to, and let me just check in our attendee section. We should have, I believe,
Connor Allerton from Marte's office is a panelist.
Fantastic. So welcome, Connor. Nice to see you. For those who don't know you on the board, Connor is, I believe, our land use person for Councilmember Marte's office. And take it away, Connor.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Connor. I am the land use director for Councilmember Marte. Thank you for having me. I have just like a few quick slides just to summarize the proposal and what we've written to the mayor and the comptroller thus far. Let me see if I can just share. Is that okay if I share my screen? Okay, let me see. I think it'll be... Okay, can you see that? Not as familiar with WebEx.
Not yet, Connor.
Okay, one second.
It's still loading. It says starting, so it'll be on shortly.
It's now in. And for people who are having trouble seeing it, you can adjust your Zoom out. There's a little button that you'll see. For me, it's below Susan Cole's photo, which is dead center, and I can adjust how much of the view that I see on my screen.
Okay, if that, yeah, just let me know if there's an issue. My internet is kind of a problem right now, but let me know if there's an issue with the slides as I go. So yeah, the proposal talks about women who are currently held on Rikers Island. And given that Rikers Island is closing, we thought of the Manhattan Detention Complex, specifically the South Tower, as a really good alternative for these women who are currently held in this all-female facility. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the situation. So currently, there's fewer than 300 women held at the Rose Ebb Singer Center on Rikers Island, which is an all-female facility. And as we all know, Rikers Island is closing, and the current plan that the city has for specifically these women, is to relocate them to the Queensboro-based jail in Kew Gardens, which is currently under construction. And in that proposal, or in that current plan, they would be integrated with men also detained at that site. You know, and so as soon as that was announced, it raised a lot of alarms for a lot of different people. There's a lot of advocates, criminal justice advocates, who have supported these women for a long time and find that their reintegration with men poses a lot of issues around safety, mental health, just a general state within their time in detention. And you know, they've been trying to pivot this more toward an opportunity to rethink how these women are detained and what services are available to them. But I think the main priority is to make sure that they can be relocated to another all-female facility. A statistic shows that over 3/4 of the women who are in what's known as Rosies on Rikers Island are domestic violence survivors, and that, you know, that just poses a series of really serious issues for these women if they were to be integrated with men. especially at a site that's not, doesn't center them and their specific needs and the services that have been provided to them up to this point or could be provided to them in the future. And so, since that plan was public, certain advocates and some elected officials have pushed for their relocation to the Lincoln Correctional Facility, which is in Harlem. This facility is a state-owned facility that was closed in 2019. And so the proposal is to renovate it for, oh shoot. Oh, did I stop sharing? Oh no.
You're
Can you
still
see
there.
me?
I
Okay,
see
something.
Hear you and see you. Yep.
Lost your window, I think.
you
It's up
lost
there.
yours, but we still see it, so we're
Yeah.
good.
Oh, interesting. Okay, sorry about
That's
that.
the one on 110th, right?
Yes. Okay, I think I'm back. Something changed on my browser. So it's a state-owned facility and it would require serious renovation. And part of the push is to make sure that the women currently held on Rikers have access to the resources, are centrally located, because a lot of these women are have children or were heads of household, and so they get regular visitors, and they wanted to look for a site that was more centrally located and was transit rich, had access to the kinds of resources they needed. There's been this push toward the Lincoln Correctional Facility, but we see that as posing a couple of serious barriers. One is that it's definitely more centrally located than Rikers, obviously, but it's still pretty far uptown. But more importantly, it's a state-owned site, and that would obviously require a transfer to city ownership before the women could be transferred there, and it could be converted into a city-owned jail. And I know there's been, people have rallied for the governor's support, but that has not happened up to this point. And depending on your perspective, it's hard to say if that will happen. But even though it's just a change of ownership, sometimes that can be a really big hurdle for projects like this. And so as of today, the plan is still to move the women from Rosie's to the.
And I guess to stop and back up. Your sound is off. Let's see. Anyone else hear Connor?
No,
No.
I can't hear.
No,
I don't hear
he's
you.
still talking.
No,
Oh,
he just
okay.
went
He went
blank.
mute.
Oh
When the
boy.
slide changed, he went mute.
Connor.
Don't keep talking, Connor.
Oh boy, he's just still going, huh?
I think he maybe he's lost his screen, so he doesn't see us at all.
Yeah, maybe. Oh boy.
This is fun.
Let me try chatting him. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
What do they want? Do they want us to vote for this? Tammy, is that what they want? Okay, so
Rezo in support.
Connor.
I think that's right.
So I guess I have a question. So this is the Manhattan Detention South Tower. Is this slated for destruction, or is this still going to stand?
No, this is slated for demolition.
That's what I thought. Okay, just wanted to be clear.
Yep.
And this would prevent it from being demolished, and have a use that's already there. That's very exciting.
Well, it would also prevent the men from being there. So I'm not sure where the men are going.
The other tower.
I think
I
that
don't
the
know.
purpose of this
It's all
initiative
slated to be demolished.
was to look at alternatives, which this board and others have looked at for years, as to look at alternatives to the demolition of these towers and the construction of a new one. And so this was a way that Marche thought might be a way in. Is that-
And it also would offload these folks way more quicker out of Rikers and get 300 or so people off of Rikers now, right? Is that part of the plan? I mean, I guess I'm waiting. I wanted to hear the whole presentation, but those are my questions that I'm assuming Connor's going to answer.
Connor,
But, yeah.
Can we check back with Connor really quick? Connor? All right. All right, I'm gonna try to wave him down again.
Connor, are you back? No.
And I wonder if he didn't just say something, or was that you?
I think
Connor?
that was-
You're muted. Can't hear you.
It doesn't actually look like Connor has his audio connected.
Connor, you lost your audio.
Oh shoot.
Oh, now we hear him.
Got you
Oh
back.
really?
Yeah.
Now we hear you.
Sorry
Yes.
about that.
That's
I
okay.
lost you for a long time.
We lost you way
Oh,
long
okay.
ago.
Connor, did
Let me
you hear
give
the
you-
two
Oh,
main
no.
questions that were asked?
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you hear the
Okay.
two main questions asked?
Yes, I believe I did. I never lost you. That's so interesting.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm still sharing my screen or not.
You are not, but let's
Okay.
take the floor is yours to answer questions.
Sure. So yeah, so this is an alternative. It would be an alternative to what the city currently has planned for the South Tower. And I think it, hearing the community's concern around the plan for MDC, I think it kind of it aligns with both the both kind of campaigns around the Manhattan Detention Complex and for the women on Rikers. And so because we're just looking at the South Tower, I know someone raised the issue around men, or how men would also be held at the facility. It's we have currently 2 buildings at MDC. And so the women's facility proposal is really just for the South Tower. And so I think because the sort of separation between men and women is so essential to the plan, we see that there's definitely opportunity, and the city could be creative in ensuring that that whatever kind of movement that happens through the Sally Port or in and out of the court can happen in like an isolated kind of way, and that the services are separated. I think we're focusing mostly on what the needs of the women are, but that's not to say that men can't also be held on this site, but just it would be separated from the women and the women's service spaces.
So that would imply a larger north tower than is currently contemplated in the reconstruction in order to be able to fit the same number of men in one tower that were contemplated to be in the larger site?
So we've kind of been advocating that the size of what's proposed is not needed. That in fact the existing borough-based jail plan only calls for around 800 beds at each borough-based jail site, and so I think we're really just focusing on not.
Is that I hadn't heard that change. I mean, originally it was 1,400 per
that
site, and so they're now thinking that there's only going to be 2,400.
36, I think, right?
Well,
sites?
four times 8.
Oh, okay.
what? 4 times
Well,
8 is
so that if on the
42.
documentation online,
Okay.
they sort of detail the plan details a smaller number than 1,500, but I know that the plan accommodates 1,500, and I think our advocacy has been around the current levels of the current occupancy of the jail system, and pushing for the goals that the borough-based jail plan initially intended, which was to help decarcerate the city and to help reform the system in a way that doesn't promote further incarceration. And I think we see that this alternative for the women's relocation as kind of in line with those goals, and that not I think our office isn't proposing that the current floor area be all lumped, or the planned floor area be all lumped onto the North Tower, but that something else is envisioned for the site that accommodates these women and actually addresses the goals that the Burbank jail plan is supposed to.
Can I ask how many beds are available in right now? If in the South Tower, is it only 300? Is it more than 300?
I believe it's about 450. So that's why this seems like a good opportunity for this relocation, because there's more than enough room, and given the legislation that passed along with the closing Rikers plan that required larger sleeping accommodations per inmate and everything like that, we would be able to, have a smaller population than what was originally planned for the South Tower. Instead of 450 under the new legislation, it would be a smaller number, but it also gives opportunity for new community spaces, visiting spaces, and the kind of service and resource spaces that would be tailored to specifically the women that are currently held on Rosie's.
Finish. Tammy, you're on mute. I know you're telling me to shut up, but my question is going to be just quick. How much reconstruction is necessary to implement this plan for the women? So
we believe that it wouldn't, since the facility is already primed. It's already designed as a jail facility. We don't think that it would require extensive renovation. And part of that question, I think, is we were hoping to answer through our request to the comptroller to conduct a feasibility study and to actually compare the numbers, because it's hard for our office to fully understand, what those costs are, the technical sides of it. We think there's enough opportunity there that it would be cost effective, and that it's definitely possible within the scope of the existing building. But our request to the comptrollers is to sort of actually crunch the numbers and understand what would actually be needed for this request to be met.
Thank you. I'm assuming that was all in your presentation, but.
So Connor, I think that's since my hand's up, I'm going next. So I think that's my concern and my question here, right? We as a board have voted and spoken extensively about not wanting a quote mega jail. We don't want the hugeness. We don't want the density. We don't want the bulk. We don't see the social justice and equity of building something and literally tearing apart the fabric of the neighborhood. We want social justice reform, which we hope could be done in the lower number of beds, which was told to us that it's possible, but we've heard nothing since. We still see a proposal, the design build hasn't been done, but there's been no guiding principles that have spoken to us as a board that says we no longer need a building that's 4 times the size or 3 times the size of the one that's there. We think we'll work within the size of the given envelope, or whatever, wishful thinking on our side, or what it could be. And that, I think, is critical to anything before we go forward. I mean, we needed to serve the people. We'd love things to be equitable and to find safe places for men and for women where their families can visit them. That is critical to the road to recovery. But I don't want to sit here and say anything until I know all the details. And so are you asking us as a board to do a resolution asking for the comptroller to study this? And if so, within a given time frame, or what do you foresee the next steps, knowing where we sit as a community, tired of being stomped on left, right, and center? I don't want to have us advocate for it and say, that is fantastic. We now definitely need the mega jail because we're going to need to build another, 30% more.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely understand. And I think for us, like the ask or the demand is contingent on both securing the goals of the sort of coalition behind the women at Rosie's, but also contingent on its impacts on the surrounding community and its ability to be sort of an interior renovation, and to make sure that the impacts are greatly reduced from what the proposal is now. I think that's part of how what we're proposing kind of finds alignment between both of those campaigns, is that we find that, these women can be safely and adequately and with like high quality resources relocated to this site. And in doing so, it'll also provide an alternative that greatly reduces like the impacts that are presented to the community now at MDC of demolition and reconstruction and added density. And so that's sort of what our proposal is to find that alignment and to find how those two kind of those two goals can intersect. If that makes sense. And so I think like that's why we asked for the comptroller's assistance, is to show us exactly how this works, because I know that for us and for the mayor and for you all, we have to prove that this can work, right? And that those goals can intersect. And so I think that's why we're hoping to get an answer from the comptroller that they can, because they've conducted feasibility studies like this. That's kind of part of their role, is to sort of show the numbers and to kind of assure us all that that this can work in a scope that doesn't sacrifice anything else that the community wants.
Alice, you're
needs.
next. And remember, if you have a question, put your hands up.
Well, we've reached out to the controller, who is pretty firm on his position, close Rikers at all costs, all $11 billion worth. So my understanding of this, which is, and I supporting it, but my understanding was that this was more the request for the feasibility study as sort of an understanding of the alternative of the retrofit, of how do you use the existing building. And in fact, in your own letter here, Marte writes, this feasibility study could shed light on how the South Tower could be renovated into a high quality women's facility. Well, I mean, I think it's valuable as a high quality women's facility and could be a lot of other aspects of the jail, potentially. But my understanding of this was more the importance of looking at retrofit as an alternative. Is that fair, Connor, or is that not? I've sort of followed it pretty closely, but now I'm hearing things a little differently. So, is that?
No, I think that is fair to say. I mean, I think we're asking for the feasibility study in sort of the context of this relocation request, but I think it can answer a lot of questions as they relate to just retrofitting of the existing facilities in general, right? I mean, I think what we would be asking a study of, it would be a high quality jail facility that meets all the conditions and requirements of the legislation that came with the closing of Rikers. And so I think we're asking for it in the context of this relocation, but I think it would, like you said, it would speak to retrofitting these sites in any capacity.
Well, I mean, I think if the board were looking at it in that light, to support that position, that's very consistent to where we've been prior in terms of saying we wanted a pause, of course, to look at many things, including the alternative of not demolishing these buildings and reusing them. So it seems like a little bit more of the same. And I guess it could be, worded in such a way that it meets whatever aspects of this we do and don't agree with. But I think as a whole, that's my read, is the importance of the idea of retrofitting the landmark eligible building on the South Tower is a very terrific idea, and go from there. Maybe it's a simple statement like that, in support of Marte's position on that. I'm also curious, Connor, why to Brad Lander on this is, and not to DDC as well. Like, wouldn't they be sort of responsible if they ever took it upon themselves to review the actual idea of retrofit again, or ever? I don't think they ever did it really, but.
Right. I think we wanted to bring sort of a third party perspective you know, because DC is so, they are the, you know, supporter of the, and the steward of the existing plan. So I think that it made sense to bring in someone whose job it is to kind of have an independent perspective. And so could maybe just provide a little bit more on like the details without knowing that it'll be, he's got a little bit, at least a little bit of separation from the issue.
Well, I don't know. I propose that maybe
Alice?
we consider
Alice?
a resolution, Tammy, and we consider, you know, what aspects of this, you know, we want to support, you know, which I think the retrofit idea is there, and that's what we support and have supported.
Let
So
Betty go. Betty has her hand up, and then Jeff. Go around the room.
Hi, thanks. I'd like to clarify the population a little bit so that I have a better handle on this. Are the women being proposed to go into the building women who would be coming here anyway, or are they from other boroughs and wouldn't actually be coming to Manhattan except for this plan?
So, yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think we're proposing the women who are currently held on Rikers. The plan is to relocate them to the Queensboro-based jail, which would involve, you know, integrating them with men and everything, and all the flags raised there. And so I think when I say when we propose bringing them to the Manhattan Detention Complex, it's really under this larger demand to sort of rethink the site. You know, it's not the request isn't to add additional detainees to the population that's already slated to come to the Manhattan Detention Complex. It's really more to yeah, like I said, to rethink what can happen at the South Tower.
But you would be adding to the population that's planned.
I think it's sort of contingent on that redesign. So it would be, instead of sort of, it's an alternative to their existing plan. I don't think we're going to accept as a solution them just adding to the existing plan an additional 300 people.
Betty, that's the concern that I brought up. Exactly what you're saying is that unless we're extraordinarily clear that it should be a portion of, not in addition to. That's yeah. Anything else, Betty? Can I go to Jeff?
Yeah, thank you.
Jeff.
Really along those same kind of themes, well, let me just back up a moment. I think it's a good idea to close Rikers, and I think having people incarcerated closer to where they go to court and where their families are is a good thing. And unfortunately, there's certain geometric problems that need to be solved to accomplish that. And putting, you know, a huge complex over on Center Street is not something the community has ever wanted. I really don't see the benefit if our objective as a community is to reduce the mass and ideally preserve that South Tower, or at least the external portion of South Tower. I'm pretty familiar with those buildings, and certainly I can't imagine that the South Tower could be used for a new women's jail without really a complete gut and retrofit, but it would preserve it architecturally on the outside. I have a concern that simply bringing the women there doesn't solve any of our problems that couldn't otherwise be solved, but by limiting the number of, limiting the size and limiting the number of human beings there, whatever gender they happen to be. I do see the issues of integrating women with men, and I'm not quite sure what that means in Queens. I have a very difficult time believing that they're actually going to be sharing corridors with men, but if they are, that shouldn't be the case. But right now, the North and South Tower at the Tombs, or at least when they were occupied, were integrated as a single building. From the inside, you can't tell if it's one building or another. It's a single kitchen, single facility, single set of hallways. The throughways to the criminal courts building run through the South Tower. So it would be quite an architectural change to isolate it in a way that would make it a separate women's jail. So to me, there's a lot of unanswered questions about how this could be accomplished and still close Rikers Island. And something's going to be done with these men someplace, and I'm not sure it's the right solution to send them all to Queens if they're going to be showing up in court otherwise across the street from where they would otherwise be incarcerated. So I mean, I have no problem with the controller doing feasibility of it, and certainly I have no problem with us repeating that we'd like to see the South Tower preserved and the mass reduced from the plans. But I think this suggestion of moving the women there is kind of a confounding suggestion in the sense of towards our other objectives, unless we have a lot more information about it. So I'm not saying I oppose it. I think it's good to move, and particularly if the women were otherwise from Manhattan, I think it's very important to be incarcerated close to family and incarcerated close to where you're going to be going to court. And if the demographics of that group says they're disproportionately Manhattanites, then by all means, we should find a way to get them to Manhattan. But if they're disproportionately in Queens anyway, or the Bronx, I'm not sure that we've actually served their interests by just putting them in some other remote location that's remote from their families and remote from the court that they have to appear in. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jeff. Connor, I see no other hands up, but I have one question that has not been asked. Is there any dialogue or conversation as to why, pursuant to kind of Jeff's comment, that if we're looking to house detainees closer to their homes, is there a reason that I am unaware of that you couldn't have a small women's facility and a small men's facility on the same campus?
Yeah, I think you just the proposal being that with the women's facility in the South Tower and then a men's facility also on site. Yeah, I don't think that there's a reason that can't happen. I think we've focused on relocating the women to the South Tower. And I think sort of what was spoken to previously about like part of the renovation would require if men were also held on site in the North Tower, ensuring that, the Sally Port and the route to the court building were separated. But yeah, I think we're acting under the assumption that that can happen, that those 2 small facilities can coexist in a matter that is like maintains the all-female services. Like there's separate services, separate corridors, separate like living
Vera,
spaces.
your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, no, I'm listening to all of this and I agree about wanting to make sure we're not increasing capacity. But I guess my question is the plight of these women right now. I remember reading that they were being moved from Rikers, which is currently a very bad place to be at. People are dying there daily, apparently, and it's horrible. But they were being moved off to another location and then being moved back, and that the plan was that the women who seem to be, most vulnerable are the last in this plan to be moved in the existing plans. Connor, is it that they would be the last to be moved ultimately? And I thought that you were trying to address the immediacy right now of trying to take care of this vulnerable population and see where we can put our women in a place that's safe.
Right.
And not further endanger them, and certainly not moving them all around here and there. They were moved further away, I remember, somewhere, I forgot where, in Westchester or something like this.
Bedford Hills Correctional.
Yeah, and so I thought there was a component of this in what you were asking for.
Yeah, so I failed to explicitly mention that. I think also because of its status as an already city-owned site, I think we see that this would also speed up the time frame for actually relocating the women as well. So I think that it would prioritize, like, as soon as MDC could be renovated and ready to go much quicker than the Lincoln Correctional Facility. And so that's definitely a component of it as well. Is that and we'd advocate for that you know, I think to, yeah, like you said, like moving these women from site to site can be very, you know, traumatizing or unsettling or just very disruptive for them. And I think that we would hope that they could get off of Rikers as quickly as possible, and that they can find a more permanent, this is like more permanent solution that wouldn't have to go through these trials of relocation like again anytime soon.
Let's see where we can wind this with the committee. So it sounds like there are a couple options ahead of us. Certainly asking for a study about this in the supportive housing, people close to where they are going to be tried and where their families and loved ones are. Do we want to do a resolution sending to the controller's office and DVC asking for a study of this to be, you know, done toot sweet? Do we want to sit further discussion on this? Let's go around the room and say where you think we should go from this. We're going to start with, oops, sorry, there's a hand up in the attendee section I missed. I apologize. Edward Kucha, let's unmute you. I so apologize. I missed you down there. Before we go around the room, let's hear from Edward. Hi, Edward.
Hello?
Hi.
There we go. Okay. Hi. Hello. How are you? I'll keep it very quick. I've spoken to Chris Marte about his plan. I, being as this community board well knows, intimately connected to the Chung Pak Center and to the jail. I can speak both myself personally and also a bit more globally. I'm a member of the Chinatown BID. I'm legal advocate for a number of different Chinatown associations, community associations, and interact with the Chinatown community. And I and everyone I've spoken to fully support Chris Marte's plan. And we thank Chris Marte very much for his advocacy. I don't want to waste this board's time. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for all the work that you've done. Thank you.
Wow, Edward, it's nice to hear you on a positive light for the moment.
Shocking, isn't it? I know.
Kind of fun. All right, let's go around the room. I'm going to start with Vera, and I'm going to go this way just so everybody knows. Vera, Jeff, Jason, Francis, Alice, Betty, Justine, Mimi, Pat, Patrick, Mariama, Detta, Paul Goldstein, Susan Cole. All right, Vera, you're up. What do you think?
I want to support this in terms of helping women get off now sooner than later, but I think it's important that we get a feasibility study to see how this can be done to adaptively reuse the space, which I am supportive of. I'm not tearing down and demolishing the existing structures. And I also I just don't want to increase capacity. So those are the things that I'm thinking of at this moment.
So, Rezo, adaptive reuse, study the inclusion of women, no additional bulk, and in fact, lower. Okay, thank you. Jeff?
I think I would support that resolution. I'm skeptical that the results of that study would be comforting to us. But if we want to study options, let's study them. The other thing that I would say about Rikers and the women there, Rikers is a whole bunch of different facilities, and the facility that the women are in is separate and distinct from all of the others. How dangerous one place is or another really depends on which facility you are in. Some of them are far more dangerous than the other ones. And you're not going to solve a lot of these problems by just tearing down those buildings and building similar buildings with similar personnel elsewhere. That said, the isolation of Rikers, I think, promotes certain behaviors for everybody there that may make it more dangerous to have it in an isolated, very difficult to get to location. And so I think local jails are likely to be less horrific than Rikers is.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. I'll make sure that we put the local and connection to community in there. Jason? Gotta unmute yourself.
Hello?
Hey, you down for a resolution?
Yes, I'm always down for a resolution.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think I have anything I could add to the Rikers Island issues at all at this point.
Okay. Francis?
I too, from what I understand, support the Marte proposal and agree with Vera around the numbers. It shouldn't be any more than what they've proposed at this point. But whatever the community board goes, the committee goes with, I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Alice?
I'd like to highlight the adaptive reuse. To me, that seems like a purposeful aspect of this more than anything else. This is obviously my personal opinion. And I might actually quote from the letter that was sent around, I don't know how many people have seen it, by Bill Sharples, who's the principal of Shop Architects, who wrote a really compelling few lines about the idea of retrofit. And I'm just going to share two if I can do that. The adaptive, it's a 4-paragraph letter, but the adaptive reuse of these buildings as an alternative to demolition and new construction poses significant cost, environmental, and quality of life benefits that simply cannot be overlooked in the rush to implement the current scheme. The goals that DDC hopes to achieve with a new building, energy efficiency, space efficiency, and ADA compliance, including thematic program states, can be achieved with adaptive reuse. And the project will be less expensive, less destructive to neighboring community, and delivered faster than through the current path we are on. He continues and says, we request that the DDC issue an RFP for a feasibility study for an adaptive reuse of 124, 125 White Street. With rising inflation, in addition to normal cost escalation, supply chain delays, erosion of the city's tax base, and a looming recession, it would be completely irresponsible not to evaluate the costs of a building new versus renovating the existing facility. Some aspect of this, this didn't get a lot of press, but Bill Sharples is not nobody in New York City's world of real estate and architecture, so it might be something we might want to quote from. I don't know if that's possible, Tammy. Just to stress the adaptive reuse. And I personally don't know that I agree entirely not to consider using the state facilities for some aspect of the borough-based jail plans. The idea of smaller, more of these jails near the courthouses, I think, was a great idea. And I know the former head of MOCJ, Elizabeth Glazer, who was one of the authors of the borough-based jail plans, actually looked to the state facilities as a possible solution. So not necessarily for the women, but I wouldn't want to agree with that part of the
I don't think we should muddy necessarily this one with that. That should be a different resolution. It's going different places because the city has no control over a state-owned facility.
Right. So fine. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with that aspect of this proposal.
Thank you. Next.
Is that me or who?
You are fine. Jump in. Let's
Okay.
go. The water's
All right.
fine.
Couldn't keep track, Tammy. I'm sorry. But
It's okay. The water's fine.
There
Jump
you
in.
go. So yeah, no, I agree with what everybody has said before. Adaptive reuse is what I've been screaming about from the beginning when I heard about this. There's buildings exist there. The idea of doing a study and a feasibility study is important because I do have questions. And you've raised them and you've got them noted in there. What I would like to do, instead of wasting time reiterating what everybody said before, is to push upon what Alice was saying. And if the state options are state options are something that cannot be put into this resolution, I would suggest that maybe that Connor, you go back to Chris and some of the stakeholders that are involved on the community side, and let's figure out a way to ask for another proposal to look at some of the state options. Because
Justine, let's take that at a different meeting because we need to have state reps here to talk about that with them.
Okay.
So I'm gonna lean on Connor
to bring that back. Yeah, that's
right?
simple and easy. And then, yes, I would support this resolution.
And I will get to you. I see that you are now an attendee with your hand up. Let me run through real quick in the order that we came. Again, if you are just agreeing, say, nope, yep, this is the right path and keep going. If it's something I've omitted, please add it along. Who have I gotten? Who have I missed so far?
I haven't spoken yet. Oh,
Pat, Mimi, Patrick, Paul,
so I'm,
and
I'm
then
sorry.
you.
I'm in agreement. I didn't hear, did I miss how much quicker could they actually renovate this space if this was accepted, as opposed to building the new building? How much faster would this happen? Did we hear that?
No, that's a study that would need to be done. That's why kind of where we're going.
Okay, so I mean, I'm in agreement.
Okay. Next, Mimi, and then Patrick, and then Susan. And then Deb, I see your hand, and Jan, I see your hand.
I would like to make sure, perhaps the study, that the relocation would be a significant upgrade from Rikers. The building is older. It's part of a complex that has a complicated history. And I'm probably the only person on the community board that wants to tear it all down. I think that new modern facilities, detached from the history of the tombs, could benefit not just the prisoners, but the faculty into changing their behavior.
Okay. Thank you, Mimi. Next.
Support a resolution asking for a feasibility study.
Thank you. Next.
Me too. I support
right.
it and all of Vera's comments.
Susan, great. Betty.
I agree. If the resolution is limited only to doing a feasibility study, actually, Mimi, I agree with you.
Okay.
So that's another one. But yes, I think the size and the ties to Manhattan or Staten Island, which won't have a borough-based jail, are real important. And I'd be real careful with the resolution about too many other details about the building, because based on what Jeff said, they're going to have to be pretty creative with how they reuse this space. And so don't limit them too much with other constraints.
Okay.
All right, let me just go quickly. I agree with 95% of what has been said here. The only thing I would say that I don't really support, and I don't think we should emphasize, is that the goal is to, while making this facility smaller for our community and lowering its impact and to serve these women, et cetera, those are all good things. But to just blindly say we need less beds when we all hear how crime is such a major issue in New York City, I think that is not a realistic approach necessarily, to just blindly say that. So that's just my opinion on that.
Okay. From the board members, before I get to Detta and before I get to Jan, did I miss anybody? Mariama, did you go?
I support the feasibility study as well.
Okay, awesome. So I think I've gotten all the board members. Yeah. Detta, and then Jan, and then we're gonna do Detta?
Okay, hi. I heard a lot of smart questions from the community board about this plan, and I heard very unclear answers. And also, I thought Jeff Galloway's points when he first spoke were very appropriate. So I would actually say to flesh the plan out more and have more discussion and get more clarity about it before even asking the controller to do a feasibility study.
Well, that's how you get a plan, is you're doing the feasibility study. You can't get a plan unless you have a feasibility study to say if it's possible.
Oh, I guess I was talking about just even getting a greater understanding of what the plan is that Christopher Marte is proposing, so that it can go to the controller with greater clarity. That's,
got it.
It's just one person's point of view, and
I think I understand where you're going. I think I got it. I think that's what Connor's really talking about, is getting the feasibility study so plans can be fleshed out, because unless you know whether it's feasible, you can't flesh a plan.
Okay.
So it's, you know, it's kind of like doing an engineering study and then making resiliency plans versus making a resiliency plan and then showing it to the engineers going, hey, what do you think?
Okay. Thank you.
All righty, Jan. Lucian, sending you a request to unmute yourself, Jan.
In either *6 or *3. Let me check. We'll unmute you.
There, you can just move Jan up.
Oh, that's a good idea. Still gonna have to hit *3 or *6. Jan.
Hey, Jan, can you unmute yourself? There you
Hi,
go.
guys. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for all the lively discussion around this. I support the council members' feasibility study request. I'm reminding all downtowners that we don't have a feasibility study since 2017. So we've asked as a community many times about the dollars and cents evaluation, the time frame evaluation, and we were met with from the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice along with DDC that it just can't be done. And so I think it's very logical before we start bringing in the cranes and the bulldozers and start taking the bricks off the building that we have a moratorium and we actually get down to the bottom with a new administration about what this feasibility study will reveal. I'm just reminding everyone, we don't have any feasibility study that has ever been presented. We have a lot of superlatives that have said this can't be done. And I think that no one should be okay with that answer until we hear the real feasibility study that will get us the answers that we need. And in the meantime, I don't believe that we should be bringing in the bulldozers and the cranes and erecting these very dangerous things in a very dangerous site in a very congested area that we're already seeing the effects of in our community. And I do agree that proximity has something to do with the safety and the people being moved, and that's why I don't understand why nobody opposed when they were moving the women to Westchester. It was not a good move then, and there's nothing to say they will not move people around to other jails. In the meantime, before 2027, we need to have a concrete solution. We have empty jails now. We can move them here, and we can get them off of Rikers Island faster than it will take to get them into a new jail that probably won't meet the 2027 deadline. So let's all get behind a feasibility study and get the assessments when the numbers are in front of us. And I thank you once again, Community Board 1.
Thank you, Jan. With that, I think we have all the notes that we need for a resolution to bring to full board. So I'm going to call for a vote. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions? Are there any recusals? Are there any noes? Fantastic. Motion passes unanimously for the request for the feasibility study as outlined in Councilmember Marte. Thank you very much, Connor, for coming. I really appreciate it. I am not letting everybody off the hook yet. Let's talk about July. We all know that Diana Sweetie is leaving us. First and foremost, hopefully you got my email and you'll be able to join us on Wednesday. Fresh salt in the neighborhood. Bring your own wallets. Bring something, a fun story about Diana, and show up between 6 and 9. It is casual. There is no board business allowed to be discussed because it is open to the whole board. So we're not talking about business. Don't even try. I will promise you there's not enough cocktails in the world for business discussions that night. All right. So it should be a fun night. It'll be nice to see everyone in person. Because we will be so short-staffed in July, I'm going to make a proposal that I'd like you all to consider. I'd like to partner meetings. If you do not have something that is time sensitive or urgent, please consider not meeting in July. But know that we do not meet in August except for executive. So if you think that there is business that your committee needs to handle sometime before September, then you're hosting a meeting in July. We can partner meetings up. So, for example, unfortunately, Susan rolls on her own. She's got to do licensing because it's licensing. But we could potentially, for example, have landmarks and land use on the same night if they're not crazy. We could potentially do waterfront parks and cultural and youth and ed on the same night if they're not crazy. We could do Battery Park City and Transportation on the same night if it's not crazy, and environmental and quality of life. So instead of having 8 to 10 meetings in the month, we can cut that number down almost in half by having each meeting be about an hour and running. I say this knowing that we just had a lovely, robust discussion and passed a resolution. It's 7:39. It's taken us an hour on executive, and I'm still on my second topic. So if no one is opposed to that, then we will take a look at the calendar. We will be in touch with you, and we will try and shrink the meetings for July.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, ask away.
Not opposed. I would love to have a meeting for the Battery Park City Committee. Would love to merge it with transportation, but could we do it the week after? Usually we're the first week in July, which was July 6, 7 or something like that, 7, 8.
I would like to get you off the first week of July. And so my thought process was, because Betty is the first Tuesday, right, Betty? Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Tuesday.
There's no way we're having a meeting July 5th.
Yeah. And so
No.
July 6th it's annoying. There's stuff that I'd like to talk about.
Well,
and I'll talk to the
it's
committee,
about
but I
looking
don't
at
want to
the
do it
calendar.
then.
It's about looking at the calendar. Let's be really reasonable. If we have the month to be flexible to do it, I don't see why we're not. I can work with you and Betty. We can take that offline with Lucian. He supports both committees. That's easy. Anybody else have any questions on this?
Last night I already asked my committee. I was thinking about this beforehand and asked my committee if it was okay not to meet in July. So as of now, we're not having a meeting in July.
Rock solid. Okay.
Can I ask a question about if two are held at the same night? Can we just make them separate so that people don't have to go to both of them? Like part A and part B?
We're going to do 6 to 7, 7 to 8.
Perfect. That works for me, Betty. And you can go first if you like.
I planned my vacation around our meetings, so I'm not gonna be able to make it if we move it to the second week for transportation, by the way. Just letting you know.
How about the third week?
I'll work that out with her and her vacation schedule and Betty and everybody offline. We don't need to do that here and have it recorded, so people are going on vacation with Mimi this summer. Awesome. So does anybody have any other concerns about any?
Your Maine is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. People like Maine.
Yeah.
I like Maine.
All right. So with that note, does anybody have anything that they really need to be worried about for full board that we should make your committee first because it's going to be anxiety ridden? Oh, I like the quiet board.
I just want to know, right now we have James, Lucy, and Lucian. Is that our staff?
James is no longer with us.
Oh, okay.
James is moving, I believe, to the great state of Texas.
Okay, that helps me to understand the staff shortage. Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So with that, hearing nothing else, we will get rocking and rolling. I look forward to seeing everybody at the full board on Tuesday. And we are going to do, I believe, Lucian, we're going to send out a sample virtual vote because remember, we're voting for treasurer at the full board meeting. So for that, we're going to do a test of an OPA vote system. And that is something that we use on the Hudson River Park Trust and many other organizations use it. We're going to actually, I talked to Lucian about it today. In order to test it, we're going to have a fun test. So is Diana still with us? No. Okay, perfect. So we're going to make it part of the game for Diana on Wednesday. You'll have to answer all the questions over the weekend or by the end of Monday. We're going to craft a couple questions that we could do sort of like fun what's my line kind of questions for the OPA vote to test it. So please test it. Know that we'll be using those answers, like, let's see, we could say, what do we think Diana's, top favorite topic has been during her time on the board, and we'll put 5 and let you guys vote. Who do we think Diana would rather go to dinner with? We'll put 5 names, and we'll have you guys vote. Stuff like that should be fun, that we can use to test out the vote and then bring in as a nice going away for her. All right. Any questions on that?
So the nominating committee has the first round of a test vote. I'm waiting for all the votes to come in. If everything is okay with the nominating committee, then I'll proceed to have something out as Tammy described by the weekend. That way everyone has, like she said, a chance to try out the system. Then if anyone has an issue, I can work it out with them. So we have no issues on the day of full board.
When are you sending it out to the nominating committee?
You already did.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'll have to check.
Well, actually, that is one issue, Lucian, and you mentioned it in your sort of email to us, that the ballot comes from a strange looking email address that people may not notice. I'm not sure how to deal with that other than just to warn people, but
maybe it went to spam in my case.
You could check your spam filter, but when I send it out to the full board, I'll also send a warning before I send the ballot out that they need to look for, it's like info or something like no reply at opavote.com in their spam box, just in case.
But we're still remote, right? Full board still remote.
We are
Yeah, full board is remote.
Full board we are remote through July 14th at this point, without any expansion of any executive orders. July 15th, we will be hybrid.
The city of New York considers their extensions at the end of the month, and the state does it mid-month. So they kind of leapfrog each other. So we'll see what happens on the 28th.
Exactly. All right. With no other questions, I see no other hands. I thank everybody for their time and their attention and their participation. I'm closing the meeting. It is 7:45. Go forth and conquer.
Did you figure out a gift?